As we hurtle towards the end of season 9 of 911, it is all gas, no brakes. I was not sure what to expect with episode 14 coming off of the buddy episode of all time, episode 13, Mother's Boy, but DIY had a lot of surprises that I was not expecting and that I delighted in. All right, so I'm going to talk about mainly Buck and Eddie, but I am going to also touch on the May storyline and the Maddie storyline because those were important and also front and center in this episode. And I don't just watch the show for Buck and Eddie, contrary to popular belief. It is like a majority of the reason, but it's not the entire reason, okay? I love the women on this show dearly. So, without further ado, let's get into all the nooks and crannies of episode 14 DIY. We got a little Maddie career upgrade. Was it at the expense of our beloved Sue? It was. I'm just glad, though, given the events of last season, that they didn't kill her off, because, I guess they do that now. Obviously, a stroke is not a small thing, and clearly the type of stroke that she experienced is severe enough to completely take her out of action, right? But I do love the hospital scenes between her and Maddie. I thought they were really good. It's been a while since we've seen Sue, and I think this gives Maddie a really new, fresh, interesting dynamic. We keep her in the call center, but now she is in charge, which is going to come with so many new challenges and storylines in the next season that I'm really excited for that. Obviously, didn't want it to be at the expense of Sue, but obviously they would have to get rid of Sue and or move her somewhere else to accomplish the storyline with Maddie, so I get it. I just thought the whole Josh of it all was a little bit annoying. I love Josh, though, so I'm glad that he came around by the end of it. I had a little Hope Core moment because he was getting on my nerves. Let's be adults here, right? So that I enjoyed. May, super glad that we are giving her a big, juicy storyline. I thought this whole episode was really interesting, and at first I wasn't quite sure the direction they were taking it. I wasn't sure if they were going to do the typical, and then this experience in the hospital and going to jail teaches her that she really does want to be a lawyer and that it is her calling. I kind of like the twist that it's going the other direction, that she's actually, this woman's right. This isn't for me. And I feel really frustrated at my age, having gone through this much school and not knowing what my calling is when everybody around me seems to know their calling. I feel like that's a very relatable storyline to a lot of people, regardless of your age, right? A lot of us are just floating around going, what in the world is even happening anymore? What is our calling? Beats me, right? So I like this. And it also opens the door to a really interesting potential nursing plot line with her, maybe going to medical school. I don't know. They could do a lot with her character in season 10, and we've all been begging for more May storyline, and they're giving it to us. I enjoyed that the emergency of this episode was centered on one couple just multiple times. I thought it was interesting and entertaining. I liked that last shot where they're walking slow-mo out of the exploding house and grab the wine bottle. Badass. But the thing I really want to talk about is the scene where Buck and Eddie are speaking at each other through this young couple, as they like to do on calls. This has happened multiple times in this show before. So glad to see that they're up to their old tricks, right? Because the lines that they say are so pointed at the other that the couple is like, are you too good? What is happening right now? And I think we need to pay attention to what was said in this scene. Because in this scene, Eddie is like, this is what happens when you try to DIY something, you can get yourself killed, and if you're not careful, you need to ask for help. And Buck, I'm paraphrasing here obviously, and then Buck is like, well, sometimes you need to DIY it because you can get it done better, and sometimes you know best, and la la la. I'm like, gentlemen, please. That is not just going to represent what happened in this episode. I strongly believe that entire exchange is going to indicate what's to come. I think we all need to be worried about what's about to happen to Evan Buckley in the next episode. I don't know how far 911 is going to take it, but people have been saying that this is the Spencer Reidification of Evan Buckley, and that scares the shit out of me. For those of you who have watched Criminal Minds, you know what we're talking about here, all right? I'm not going to spoil it for you in case you haven't, but that sends a chill down my spine. Starting off, though, going back a little bit, the first scene of the two of them, the scene that was actually one of the promo scenes that they released early ahead of the episode, which I was shocked by. It's almost never a buddy scene. Can we all just take a moment to be so proud of Eddie Diaz? Evolved King First of all, does he have Buck's shared calendar on his phone? Like, what's going on? Anyways, him insisting that Buck go to therapy and work through this in a healthy way is like, have we really taken into account how much he's grown over the years? This was not the old Eddie Diaz. We have changed, we have grown, we have evolved. This is amazing, right? That alone was like huge win, correct? Sets us up for a really interesting dynamic between the two of them, because here we have Eddie's POV pretty much the entire episode, minus a few Buck moments, of his concern for Buck. He knows Buck better than anyone in the world, okay? Especially after the experience that they just had together through this road trip kidnapping extravaganza. It was heartbreaking to see him walk up to Buck's house with Christopher and food in tow and be ignored. And then I'm like a 98% sure that Eddie clocked that Buck is home and saw that the blinds were rustling at the end there. So he knew that Buck was intentionally not opening the door to them, which I can imagine is absolutely unheard of for Buck, especially when it comes to Christopher. Like, shit has to be really bad for that to happen. And then conversely, the scene that follows where he opens up the door and is way too overly chipper, way too overcompensating. I'm writing a line between the team, or like the camp that thinks that Eddie knows Buck is not okay still, but is playing along so that Buck doesn't shut him out completely, and he's like trying to meet him halfway a little bit, and the camp that thinks that Eddie is like said what he meant and meant what he said and is convinced that Buck is okay. I can't quite tell, but I'm absolutely loving how attentive Eddie has been to Buck and his problems, and being like really concerned about his well-being. It's a shift. Like, he's always cared, but there's a definite shift this season, especially now. And can we also take a moment? This scene where Christopher and they sit down at the table was the most family vibes I've ever seen. You literally, like, I'm so sorry. People who are anti-buddy are like, we can't have any platonic friendships. Why does everything have to be romance? I'm like, guys, have you ever seen on television a scene like that between platonic male besties? Be so fucking serious with me right now. Like, that's not, you don't get that kind of scene with Chimney and Hen. You don't get that scene with fucking Maddie and Athena. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? This is the most family ass shit I've ever seen. And by family, I mean like they're married and they have a child. I digress. Anyways, we have entered the Buck Wump era. For all of you who were praying for Evan Buckley angst, you got it. So eat your food, all right? This could be another classic instance of 911 introducing something that seems very serious, but then resolving it very quickly and it's actually not that serious. Or they can take it all the way into insane territory and you're like, oh my God, what am I watching? There's actually no way to predict that anymore, because it could be as serious as a Bobby Nash situation. Obviously, they're not going to kill off Buck, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we could go all the way there with serious, or it could be like a LOL, anyways, it was just like an anxiety med. He's prescribed. He's seeing a therapist. Everything's okay. Like, there's genuinely no way for us to know how batshit next week's going to be. And that's really terrifying. They are keeping us on our toes. You have to hand them that. We don't ever know when they're going to zig or zag. The thing I think, though, is going to be really quite interesting is how they handle this between Buck and Eddie, right? This is going to be significant in Buck's life. Tim Miner's already talked about this. It's going to have lasting repercussions. Whether this medication he's taking is painkillers or are painkillers, or whether it's anti-anxiety medication or whatever it is, there's wild theories about, you know, where this could lead. How it affects Eddie and how Eddie interacts with Buck through this is going to determine whether or not we get any sort of buddy canon by the end of the season. Does that terrify you? Because it terrifies me. There's no way to know. I'm sitting here in the dark, along with all y'all. We can headcanon all day, but we actually don't know.